Howdy doody. Welcome to episode 294 of TDI. This is Dr. O on the horn to start per usual. And for the first time, we are without Ricky Flicks for a Loki recap, but have no fear. We are joined by our MCU correspondent, Jax. Thank God you're here because I don't think I could speak an hour alone on this latest episode. How are you, my friend?
I am good, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be back. Flex texted me. He was just like, "We need you next week." He's like, "I can't make it." I was just like, "I got you. I'll be there."
So Flex is missing a pretty massive episode, right? Yeah. So the follow-up to episode 4, the massive cliffhanger, the cut to black, but also we had a slew of MCU headlines about, as I said before in the intro, the turmoil happening within Marvel right now. But with all this chaos surrounding the MCU, I mean, they got something pretty good cooking with Loki. And I know we missed you last week, Jax, but where we left off, I just wanted to get your reactions on last episode, right? And as we go into more of an emotional one, right? Penultimate heading into the finale. What do you think of that episode 4 cut to black and all the stakes that were involved there?
Blew my mind. I was just like, all hell just broke loose. And I was just like, I don't know how to feel. I don't know what's going to happen. At that point, I was literally like, I literally have no idea what's going to happen next. But yeah, last episode they hit it out of the park. It was amazing. It was great. And I think, right, we had that high stakes. Oh my God, what's happening? This is a nicer little, I wouldn't say it's bad in any sense or boring, but it was a nice little kind of laxed episode for us at the beginning at least.
Dude, I 100% agree. And I was in the same boat as you. I'm like, how are they going to follow up this episode? And like only Loki can pull it off where it's action packed in episode 4. It's got a variant of Kang. It's got Ravonna. It's got Miss Minutes, and it's got the implosion of the temporal aura. And then it could follow up an episode that has like just as high emotional stakes, right? As like the actual temporal aura exploding in episode 4. And this one, man, I gotta be honest, I was super impressed. I was like, how can you follow it up and also satisfy audiences, right? Are you going to try and outdo it? Are we going to try and bring back Victor Timely, right? Is Miss Minutes now just because is going to come back in some fashion? Is Ravonna going to come back, right? Maybe in the finale, right? Where things could get a little bit crazier, but no, they kind of bring it back to what makes the show so special. Relationship between Loki and Mobius. And we had the one-on-one moments between Sylvie and Loki as well. It was interesting to finally see these characters, some of these characters get what they want, right? Particularly Sylvie with these people being placed back on their timelines, but also seeing how this impacts Loki. Because I never thought about that. This episode I thought was huge in terms of Mobius and Loki specifically. And you find out Loki, he wants the timeline to be set in place. But when he finds out it might be all right, he just wants to have his friends, dude.
Yeah.
He just wants to hang with the homies. And that hit me hard. That hit me hard. I think I just want my friends back. I'm like, damn, I felt like a 5-year-old would say that and like see it in an Instagram video and make me watch it 100 times and I'd break down into tears. But I thought this had the emotional stakes, dude.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when he said that, because it was just like, it reminded me of the scene kind of from Good Will Hunting where it's like, it's not your fault. It's not. It just breaks down. And because Sylvia was just like, what? Why? Like, what do you want? And he was just like, I want my friends. Like, it was unbelievable. And it's cool to see Loki and like, and I think we've gotten that more and more like with this TV series. But before that, right? Like Loki's a me guy. Like he does what pleases him. He is kind of a loner to an extent, right? And I think like now that he has this foundation and this like family almost, like he just wants to be with his friends, man. He just wants everything to be okay.
That's so true. He's always been a loner, and most Lokis are loners. And that's like a part of the conversation between Sylvie and Loki at the bar. And that was like the first time this season. That scene was so powerful to me because it's the first time that I thought, like, I actually see what Sylvie's saying. You know, there's so many times where she is butting heads with Loki, and I think the audience just naturally takes Loki's side because, I mean, he drives the show, he is the show. But when I have like this, when I hear Loki kind of admitting, like, I see what you're saying now. Like these characters, the idea of free will, them butting heads, and then Loki just saying why he's doing it ultimately is to have his friends. And then you hear Sylvie say, I mean, look who's selfish now, right? Sylvie wants her own life. She wants to be on the timeline, but also she's allowing these other people to be free and on their own timeline. And Loki's the one coming off as selfish. That never registered to me
Exactly.
until that scene. That's why I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right too. Like you like every time I'm just like when Sylvie and Loki are going at it, I'm like, why is Sylvie doing this? Like what are we doing right now? Like
Uh-huh.
she like you get that idea and kind of that feeling that she is being selfish. But like at the end of the day, like I guess whatever you want in a situation, it is selfish to an extent. But like it's just crazy to kind of see that script flipped a little bit and like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like she just wants to chill. And then he just wants his friends. Like that's
Yeah.
it.
It just felt like a breakthrough because they just even ever since that finale season 1, they've
Mhm.
never seen eye to eye, and it just felt like Loki finally hears Sylvie and he sees everything coming into realization. And like that moment also why the show is so good, like even though these are gods, right? Between Sylvie and Loki, like he says, I just want my friends, and then like the bartender slides him a beer. I'm just like, yeah, like that's like real life stuff right there. That's why it's connecting to audiences. I thought it was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, where I want to go though, I love the Loki and Sylvie stuff, but I thought Mobius, this was huge for his character. This episode to see they've been like Sylvie confronts Mobius last episode saying, "You are taking this way too nonchalantly. You're not taking this seriously. The stakes, like the destroying and disappearance of these branch timelines, right? These people have lives. You never explored your life. You don't know what you're missing." To see that moment where Moby is having to reconcile that he's going to have to leave his kids, that's also a realization, like people coming to like terms with the emotional stakes of the show. I have to leave my kids, right? And he never had that feeling before, and to see him have to sacrifice that, I think it just brings the character full circle and opens up like a different side of Mobius that we had been inching towards like this
Mhm.
entire season, but pretty satisfying to see it on screen.
Oh, 100%, right? Like, I mean, right away you see Loki when he time slips at the to the jet ski dealership, I guess,
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
I was just like, oh God, here we go. I was just like, I need it.
amazing.
I was like, please. But yeah, it adds again like another layer of that like emotional aspect to it, right? Where it's just like at the time, right, when he's at the TVA, he's like, oh, I never cared. Like, I don't care to go see what I am on the timeline. But like and again, that's kind of like blunting your emotional like emotions to an extent, like because now he has kids and he has a life and
Uh-huh.
like, he has his jet skis and like he's like, oh crap, like we gotta go save like the universe, like the multiverse. Like it's
Right.
crazy.
He never had to tear between those 2 decisions, you
Yeah.
know, and where he never wanted to leave the TVA and now he doesn't wanna go back to the TVA, you
Yeah.
know? That to me, that's it also makes me just think about that Sylvie conversation, like, as
Mhm.
much as I, like, despise her at some points in this season, I'm like, "Damn, she's spitting facts right now."
Yeah.
Like, she's right, and I like, as much as we don't want her to be right, it's just this whole episode, I think, kind of vindicates her feelings, you know? Up until like the branch timelines start to absolutely eviscerate and they go like Scott Lang quantum mania,
Yeah.
like almost like we saw episode 4 with Victor Timely getting
Yep.
sucked up by the temporal aura. um yeah, so Mobius, amazing. I thought there was a moment where he opens the garage door alongside Loki and there's 2 jet skis,
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, "Oh my god, we're gonna get them riding jet skis, like, alongside one another." Like, that's gonna happen.
I was praying for it.
You know, it almost reminds me, like, it'd be such, like, a comic book, like, show if it, like, had them at the end on jet skis, like, if it had Loki on a jet ski. It's almost like how, like, Batman, like, when you think of, like, the 1966 movie or whatever, when he's, like, in the water, or, like, the show when he's, like, surfing and stuff like that. Like, it's just, like, a zany type of thing that I could see
Yeah.
happening in the show. When I saw those side by side, I'm like, "This needs to happen at some point."
I hope it does, man. That would just be great, right? Like
Yeah.
just be fun, man. Um Yeah, but it's just, I mean, again, with Mobius, like it was really like it was just emotional. Like it was just like,
Mhm.
oh shit, like there are these emotional stakes that are like you see someone like Mobius where he's literally just a hard like very closed off. He's about the TVA, he's about his business, he's about like, and then there's more. Like it's cool
Uh-huh.
to say. It was cool to say.
And it was cool to see how, like, even though they're not in their TVA uniforms, they're inherently like the same characters,
Yeah.
you know? So you still have like the personality of Mobius and the guy who will just kind of in a very serious moment, he'll just transition to a joke or like
Yeah.
a nice quip, you know? And even they even do like the small details where he's inside of the where he sells the jet skis and the motorsports, whatever it is, and he says like, "Oh, you got the nice donuts today." I'm like, "Oh, he still has a taste for the sweets," you know. I'm
Indeed.
just like those small things. It's just like they don't seem like they are the same person, right? But like they inherently are, you
Oh,
know. I
100.
love that, and that kind of like bleeds into OB here.
Oh yeah.
Um, OB, when he is sent to his branch timeline right after the events at the end of episode 4,
Mhm.
he is a writer, a sci-fi writer.
Yeah.
He is also a theoretical scientist at Caltech. It's I thought it was interesting to see how he also is inherently in the same by like he's still the guy who knows all. He's still the guy, right, who's a little bit off, but he's going to be able to figure everything out, right?
Mhm.
Despite him not having all these advances here, Loki helps him out with the handbook a little bit that Obi wrote in the first place. But I love that we got basically the same character
Mhm.
just set what was it 1994 in
Yeah.
California, you know? It's almost like it's like it's like Victor Timely in the late 19th century. I'm like, yeah, he's not going to be able to figure this stuff out. It's like the late 19th century. I'm like, no, wait, it's just inherently the same character, right?
Yeah.
He can do this, you know? So, OB, I thought he was also, I didn't anticipate he's going to be showing up so much in this goddamn show, you
Yeah.
know? But I thought he was amazing this episode as well.
Oh, he was awesome. Yeah, and it's cool. Like the shot where we see him, right? When he goes back to his whatever it is how I don't know if he
It's the
lives.
same layer.
It's
Yeah.
literally the same thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Like you see the shot and you're like, this is his workshop in the TVA, just not colorful. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what I thought. And like when he made that comment where he's like, oh yeah, there's no one like around for miles. It's like, yeah, dude, this is literally what you do. Like you
Yeah.
are a recluse who likes to work on his gadgets, work on his stuff, work on writing, whatever. But yeah, he was. I thought he was awesome in the show. I've liked seeing him in the show, like episode after episode. At first, I was a little like, am I gonna get sick of this? Like,
Hmm.
because he's a lot, right? He's a little zany, he's quirky, but like, I like it. It's a nice
Right.
little break.
Like he has that dialogue that's really hard to understand. Like
Yeah,
he'll try and explain time. It was a little more accessible this episode than
yeah,
like actually being in the TVA with all these like there's all this machinery. It's like engineering and all that stuff. But here it was really cool to see him work with Loki on the time slipping
yeah,
and introduces yet another power for Loki. And this was so sweet when he said like you have the ability potentially to control time slipping. I'm like, holy shit, he's gonna turn this curse into like one of the most badass powers in the MCU, and it's
yeah,
gonna save the day in the finale, right? I don't anticipate it's gonna have such a dark ending as
mhm.
the season one, but who knows? You know, like we know Loki for a TV show has very high stakes for the entirety of the MCU. But what do you think of the time slipping here and him working with OB?
That was literally just chef's kiss. I was just like, my God. Like in my notes, I was just like, wait, can Loki time travel now? And then
Yeah.
I wrote that like when OB was just like, oh, maybe you can control it. And then at the end, when we see him do it, I was just like, this is amazing. Cause right, like, and I have some theories to get off, which we'll get to. But
Mhm.
he is like, this is insane. If this is something that is going to continue to happen, it's the best thing in the world, possibly for especially for the setting and what's going on in this show right now.
This would have been great if he had this power in Endgame, you know,
Exactly.
like we would have to like do all we'd
We'd be
have
all
Scott
set.
Lang coming back.
It would be
Yeah, well, like I guess we could have just reset the entire thing. But yeah, that was cool to see just because it literally is causing him pain as he's fighting against it, but to see him accept it and like even working it out where it's like, is it the why? Like, why am I doing this? Is
yeah,
it fiction? But rather, no, it's who. And that goes with the idea of like him wanting to be around his friends, you know, like having that drive. I thought that was also beautifully written.
mhm,
Um, okay. Also, I just got to throw in the rest of these like branch timeline characters. Like they didn't get a lot of shine, but Casey and Alcatraz is hilarious.
Oh, hysterical. I was like, because I saw the in like the trailer they put out for this episode, or they showed him like going through like wearing like prison garb, and I was just like, is he in jail?
Yeah.
He's escaping. He's just like, dude, this is Alcatraz. Like, what are you doing here to Loki? And I was like, oh my god, man.
When I was seeing him escape, I thought for a second it was X5 like in the wall. I'm like, no way Brad is like here now. You know, he's like, imagine like wanting to get back to right his timeline and be a movie star, and he ends up like in Alcatraz 1962. I'd be like, God damn it, right? That's what he gets for taking and killing that mass execution last episode and joining Ravonna. That would have been great. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah.
That was insane. That was insane. But yeah, him there, and then we have B-15, also in the same job that I think when she was enchanted during the first season by Sylvie, she's a doctor, and it seems very fitting for her character, cares for others, you know. A more vulnerable side we see this whole season thus far. I think it matched up well. They just didn't get the screen time. Like, it was hilarious when like Loki goes to OB. I gotta explain the TVA to you. He goes to Moby. I have to explain the TVA to you. And then he just walks in to look at B-15, nods his head, and they're like, okay, now let's cut to Case, nod his head. Yeah, let's go. We don't have time for this. Let's keep moving here. We get it. It's like Blues Brothers. Let's get the team back together. But like we only care about Aykroyd and Belushi here. We don't care about everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Gotta get the band back. We don't have time for this. We gotta go.
I mean, honestly, and I was looking at some early reactions, and like we're gonna get to the end of this episode with like the spaghetti of it all, the branching of timelines, then Loki obviously with the ability to kind of time travel. There's a lot of time slip. It's a little bit Infinity War Endgame vibe to me. Right, with the end of episode 4 feeling like the end of Infinity War, the gathering of the team, the reassembling, everybody coming back for right, heading into this finale, gathering up everyone. You know, that's like the beginning of Endgame, and you literally have like the dissolving of these characters and the branch timelines. I just saw like parallel after parallel to Infinity War. Did you get those vibes?
I didn't until you just said that, because it's exactly that. Right? Like, all hope is lost. The TVA, the temporal loom literally explodes. Yeah. But then Loki's the guy who's trying to get everybody back together. Yeah, that's a great shout. I mean, and it feels like it's heading towards that, right? Like we gotta get to a resolution eventually. Like whatever that is next episode, we're gonna find out. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I thought, honestly, one of the best visual scenes I have seen in Marvel in quite some time was Loki. I mean, excuse me, same character, but Sylvie in the record store. That was unreal. What a needle drop when she, first of all, record store, like 82, right? 1984, 1982, Oklahoma record store, just chilling by yourself, like late at night. Like, what a time to be alive. You got Underground playing, awesome needle drop. I actually Shazammed the song because I'm like, there's got to be some meaning behind this song. Yeah, it was Velvet Underground. I gotta pull up the Shazam. Shazam's. Oh Sweet Nothing by the Velvet Underground. I'll look up the lyrics at some point, but having that moment with Sylvie also being alone and having that conversation with Loki saying, like, I just want my friends back. And she is like content with being by herself, but you almost feel like, is she really content? You know, like is she okay? Like, I feel like the stakes are like daunting, and I feel like it's to use a word that rhymes, it's haunting her a little bit, you know. And then to have that moment where everything goes slow mo, and then you have the amazing CGI, and like we have so much like beef with Marvel right now with CGI and the workers especially. It was amazing to hear the song, to see the emotional reaction, to see the visuals all at once. And that's where it kind of felt like, okay, now she has to go back to see Loki, obviously. And and where you're not going to be alone anymore. But I thought that scene was just unbelievable. One of the best, I think, in recent Marvel history.
When he's pouring the coffee.
Oh, yeah.
My God. And then you look and it shoots back down to the table. There's no cup. It's gone. Like, I was just like, this is great. Yeah, but I like what you're saying too about like kind of like it's haunting her being alone to an extent, right? Like she's alone in a record store. She's a regular there, like the guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's what she does. She doesn't have, and again, it kind of goes back to the thing where like Lokis are kind of loners. Like she's going to the record store every night, it seems, or nightly or whatever it is, chilling out, listening to some records, which is kind of sick, but
Yeah.
that's a fact. Yeah, like it seems like it could be haunting her a little bit, right?
I think I got the beef I have a little bit with the show is that Loki has that conversation, right? Where, okay, the idea of free will. Does that mean like even though they were sent to the TVA and then had free will, do they have an option to stay with the TVA or be on their like timelines they originate from? And then at the end, he kind of accepts the fact from that conversation with Sylvie, they're going back to their branch timelines. I'm not going to force them into doing something just because it's selfish of me and I want my friends back. But at the end, everything works out, you know? Like that kind of rubbed me the wrong way where it's like you had that conversation and then afterwards it's like, oh, the TVA is needed. And then we need to bring this team back together. Like that part kind of pissed me off because it happened so close to when Loki finally acknowledges like these people, like they were on their timeline first. They were on that branch timeline, right? And to me, it just kind of was icky, you know?
Yeah, it goes to show though, right? Like in this MCU world, right? Like there's no such thing as free will. Like someone's got to be the man behind the curtain, like
Uh-huh.
doing something. Like it's just crazy. Like they want free will, everything like this, but then we get here and it's like, well,
Yeah, it makes me reflect on that conversation between Sylvie and Loki in the pie room where all deep
yeah, of
conversations and theoretical and philosophical conversations happen.
course,
And what was he saying? He's like, we are gods, like to
yeah.
Sylvie. Sylvie's like, we're playing God. And Loki's like, we are gods, you know?
Also, hardest line of all time.
Great mic
I was
drop.
just like, oh my god,
Yeah, no, that was an amazing mic drop moment. But at the same time, I think Loki was like in this episode saying like, "Oh, like I don't have to play God here. I don't have to be the next He Who Remains, the good quote unquote He Who Remains." You know, but we find ourselves in that same position going into the finale now with all like these timelines, branch timelines that are disappearing. What else here, Jax? Any other thoughts? Any other flaws? Like before we get to like predictions, I know you got your theories.
oh yeah,
Like this show was when the reviews came in for Rotten Tomatoes, it wasn't very high,
yeah,
and I don't unnecessarily understand why. Like honestly, we talked about last time you were on was through
mhm,
episode 3, and we said like bar for bar, like line
yeah,
for line, like episode the first 3 episodes line up with season 1 and season 2. And then we had this jaw-dropping episode 4, which was my favorite of the season.
oh
And
yeah.
then we got in a high emotional stakes episode, right? Following that felt like a perfect run-up or I guess sequel to episode 4. Like, why do you think that critics kind of have, like soured on the show before it even came out?
Honestly, I don't know, right? Like I stayed true this now through 5 episodes. I think this is better than season 1. I think the stakes are higher. And that's expected to an extent, right? Because we know how season 1 left off and like it introduces the big bad and now it's like, nah, he's here like
Yeah.
in this season. Um but yeah, I just don't agree. I think Loki like it's just really, really well written. It's interesting. The concept is really cool of it. I just don't understand why people are like Predators, for example, like why it's getting these low Rotten Tomato scores or whatever. Because like
Mhm.
I think like, and again, I'm not a movie or television savant, I guess you could say, but like I'm a Marvel guy, and this is by far the best thing. Like the Loki
Right.
series is the best TV series that they put out.
It's like pure entertainment
Yeah,
factor. Like this is right up there
yeah,
with season 1, and I think in terms of action, it's better,
yeah.
right? And I think with this episode, it goes back to what made episode 1 so good with like the identity of the characters, okay, what they stand for, and building off of right season 1. Mobius is such a deeper character than what we saw in
Yeah,
season 1, and it's not. You could say like the failure of other Disney Plus shows might be haunting the brains of critics,
sure.
but the faults of those other Disney Plus shows, a lot of it had to do with the visuals, had to do with the CGI. This show is not lenient on CGI, and
Yeah.
when it is used sparingly, it's phenomenal, like it was in this episode. So I just don't understand. Maybe it's like, well, my big criticism was the Loki Sylvie constant interactions, constant headbutting, same conversations over and over again.
Yeah.
But there was like a point where it was a breakthrough this episode, where I feel like we're not going to get any more of those conversations, but it had a build up point where I think it paid off, right? It just goes to that last part I was just complaining about, just
Yeah.
because we all got to save the day again. We all got to go back to the TVA, but I don't really understand it. But you said you got some theories here.
Oh, I got
I,
these.
I want to hear some ideas from you, Jax.
Yes. So Loki, at the end of everything, at the end of episode 6, Loki is going to be running somewhat of a TVA. Whatever that means,
Oh yeah.
he will be running something, doing something. He's going to be the He Who Remains. I think he's going to be obviously a better He Who Remains in terms of being good or bad. I saw something where I saw it on Twitter or something, but Marvel recently, I'm actually going to look it up as well, but they put out, it's either a new comic run or something, and they called Loki the God of Stories. Which I was just like, this is interesting. So it looks like June 14th, they put it out. Loki, God of Stories, whatever. And that's interesting to me, right? Because he said in the show, because I knew this prior, and he said in the show, oh, I can rewrite the story. So like, again, might be reaching here, but I was just like, I think we're going to get something where he's running everything. He's going to try to let all these timelines live together, all these branch timelines. And then obviously, I think at some point, right, we got to get to Kang Dynasty. We got to get to Secret Wars. Everything is just going to go haywire. But I think where we're going to be left off here is he is going to be running it in some facet.
Yeah, dude, I love that take, especially with this power that he holds that no one else can, with him being able to time slip and him being able to make small adjustments without messing up any timelines, whether it be the sacred or the branch timelines. I can see that 100% happening. And it's just such a wild journey that Loki has gone on from Thor as being like the ugly stepchild, and now to potentially running the TVA. Like what? Like this arc is Banana Land. It's a roller coaster of all roller coasters, and I just never imagined we were going to have potentially Tom Hiddleston for the future. And it's with the ability to run the TVA and be able to time slip in like in what's titled the multiverse saga. Like we're going to see, we should see Loki for the remainder of this saga and playing an integral role in like in Kang Dynasty, obviously, because the relationship with He Who Remains, Victor Timely, and other variants that maybe. And potentially Secret Wars. Like to me, that is something that I'm happy about, because we never got him in Infinity War. He gets choked out like Thanos right in the first scene, right in front of his brother. So like maybe we should get him in one of these team up movies, because he kicks ass, and see him use these powers could be actually really helpful.
100%. Like Loki, I feel like no one hates Loki, right? Like even going way back to like the first Avengers movie, you're just like, all right, he's kind of a bad guy, but like he's entertaining like to his core. And like now again, like you said, like with this kind of redemption arc, like he's still entertaining. It's awesome. And then my other take, which kind of contradicts this take to an extent, I guess, but I do think that there is a Kang variant still kind of man behind the curtain kind of thing, pulling the strings. I don't know if it is Who Remains, maybe a variant, whatever. I don't know if it's a much worse variant like Kang the Conqueror. I don't know what it is, but something's telling me there's still someone pulling these strings.
I 100% agree with you. We haven't disagreed on much this episode, Jax, right? It's kind of like sometimes it's opposite with me and Ricky Flex, just because brothers naturally butting heads. But what kind of told me that we probably will see another variant of Kang, or someone pulling the strings in the background, whoever that may be, is there was a teaser at the beginning of this episode where you had a throwback or a flashback to season 1, where it's saying that He Who Remains maps out every single move that is being made here, right? Why would you show that scene in this particular episode, right? As if like, yeah, you might get someone that's pulling the strings like in this episode, or you're gonna have to wait till next week and you have to remember that we played this flashback. You know, like when I saw that, I was like, oh, we're getting another variant.
This episode too, I was just like, oh god, yeah. I thought like.
You know what I saw, and I wanted to throw another theory at you. Maybe you probably saw this, maybe, but when Victor Timely when he enters the temporal aura at the end of episode 4, he like is absorbed into all these different timelines, right? And
Yeah.
so I saw people talking about Victor Timely. It potentially becomes a similar character to He Who Remains, a similar variant where he now is absorbing and has all this knowledge from all these timelines, and there are pieces of him everywhere after being initially absorbed by the temporal aura. So I
Ooh,
don't know. Maybe we get Victor Timely back, right? But he's much more powerful, much more devious than he was previously, and almost takes up the mantle that He Who Remains had.
tinfoil hat here.
Oh yeah, put it on.
We're getting crazy. What if, right? So he's getting absorbed by the temporal aura. There's
Mhm.
a theory right now, right? Obviously, and we'll get to all the Marvel's issues where they might go to Doctor Doom, whatever. But there's a theory right now running that one of the variants of Kang is the Beyonder.
Oh, I
Now,
think this is good.
what if him being absorbed by the temporal loom, whatever, what if that is kind of the start of that, where there's pieces of him, because the Beyonder, right, can go to any multiverse, can do anything, basically controls everything. What if that's kind of the start to him becoming the Beyonder? That's where, again,
Wow.
crazy theory, but I think it kind of tracks.
So this kind of like bleeds into some of the headlines that came with Marvel
Mhm.
earlier this week with the Variety article. And there was a quote from a movie exec who has seen the end of Loki, and they've talked about potentially going off of Kang and going to Doctor Doom or another big bad, depending on like what's going to happen with the case with Jonathan Majors and what's going to happen with like literally after Quantum Mania. Not exactly a box office success there, but they said after this season, the Marvel's fucked.
Yeah,
Like with the angle that they take for Kang, which tells me he is going to be the focus potentially not only for Kang Dynasty, but potentially for the future of Marvel into Secret Wars. And probably because they could have that Thanos in Avengers 2012 type of moment where you see the Beyonder and then we cut to black,
that
you
would
know?
be amazing. That
Yeah.
would just, but right, like could be a thing, right? And again, I'll save my feelings on him becoming the Beyonder for another time, whatever. But I right, like it makes sense. I think like, and eventually I saw that same article where they were just like they are screwed with
Mhm.
the way they're going after the season wraps. But yeah, I mean it's we'll see what happens. I definitely still think though that we're getting Kang next week, 100%.
Yeah.
Some way, shape, or form. He'll be around.
We'll dive into the Variety article because I think the way your knowledge of the MCU and how your views of the big bads I think can come in handy when we have that.
Yeah.
But any other theories you have that kind of like popped into your mind heading to the finale or predictions, whatever you got?
I think Sylvie is going to die.
I think so too. God damn it!
I'm not happy.
Someone's got to die, right?
Someone
That's not a dude. We can't have another Kang variant die.
no,
We
no,
can't.
they can't. Again, that neither here nor there. Terrible decision. But yeah, I think it's gonna be her, right? Because I think and again with my theory, I think with Loki kind of running a TVA or something of that, I think you would have Loki and Sylvie do it, like He Who Remains proposed in season one. And I don't know. I got this feeling I think she is going to die, but I think it's going to be a very noble death.
Putting back the temporal aura, like the temporal loom, I should say. Like
Yeah,
maybe she's the one who
sacrificing
decides to
kind
do
of
so.
laying down on the sword, something. I
Yeah.
think we're gonna get, and it's gonna be like next closure to her character.
After like her saying the TVA isn't needed and then wanting to make sure these branch timelines exist, she recognizes the TVA has to exist and she's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure these people go back to their branch timelines and they're restored. You
Yeah,
know, I think that could definitely that has some potential. And you need someone like the stakes of the show has been so high, like from the first episode,
yeah,
right? They can't let off the gas, right? Someone is going to have to bite the dust here.
mhm.
It can't be Mobius because he just introduced that he has two kids,
Yeah,
and
right.
and Sylvie is like the loner,
Mhm.
And I looked up the lyrics to that Velvet Underground song, the chorus. It's like, "Oh sweet nothing, she ain't got nothing at all. Oh sweet nothing, she ain't got nothing at all." Like that's the chorus of the song. That's it. right? So
she's been on the run her whole life
yeah,
from
and
the
like
TVA. Like,
her being so isolated, okay, maybe she also her similarities with the Loki character, maybe she recognizes that like these are people that like accept her. She hasn't had people, she's pushed people away time after time. She somewhat has accepted Loki, kind of, but these guys I think are all on the same page looking to achieve a goal. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens, but I think she's definitely prime candidate number one.
for sure.
Okay. Any other predictions here? So we're talking potential Kang variant, pulling the strings, the Oz. We're talking about potential Beyonder. Anything else? That's a lot of stuff. But do you
Yeah,
have anything,
I
any
got
juice
3
left in the
I could
tank?
go for hours, dude, but no, I think we'll stick with that. I think we're gonna end with Loki being running the TVA. This next episode, we're gonna see another Kang variant and probably him be the man behind the curtain, and I think Sylvie might, unfortunately, pass away next episode.
Ugh, ugh. We
Yeah.
hope it's not true, especially because now we're coming around to a
Yeah,
character
no,
this season.
I
Just
like
like
Sylvie.
right when I start to like her, it's like, oh, see you Monday.
Oh, man.
Um,